Well, hello, and welcome to Opal City Confidential, a Starman podcast, episode 48. And we will be covering Starman Volume 2, Issue 24, Demon's Quest, Parts 1 of 3. Very excited about that because we're going to get to talk about the poster and Merritt and his demon and Shade and the O'Dares. And this is one of my favorite stories in Starman, and I'm excited. And we're going to cover Golden Age Starman. We're back to Ted. We haven't done Ted in a couple months. I'm excited. I was excited to read it, and it was a fun one. It's a Starman comic from Adventure Comics number 73. So let us begin with Adventure Comics 73, because we're going to do the old one first because I haven't talked Ted. So let's go to the pertinent data about this comic. It was Adventure Comics 73, cover date April 1942, cover date, on sale date approximate, February 27th, 1942, was a 10-cent comic, edited by the amazing Maury Boltinoff. The Starman, well, the cover is a Jack Kirby cover, and that is because it is a Sandman cover. Starman is no longer the cover character in Adventure Comics anymore. The title of the story is The Case of the Murderers in Outer Space. It is a 13-pager. Features, of course, Ted Knight of Earth 2, writer Gardner Fax, artist Jack Burnley. This has been reprinted in the Golden Age Starman Volume 1 hardcover, which is where I read it. And that's, wow, this one's only been published once. I like this one. Starman will appear next in Adventure Comics 10. All-Star Comics 10, and we'll cover that. I think I'm going to do it a different order because I'm doing it by publication order. We get to see Doris Lee, and Woodley Allen is there. The villain is the Hooded Hunchback and Morgan's thing. And there is a nice little synopsis here in Mike's Amazing World. I love this site. I just love it. Clifford Taylor, heir to the Taylor heady fortune, is found dead in California 3 hours after being seen in New York. Due to a clause in the will, Clifford's family will not receive the inheritance because he was found in California. Starman is called to investigate, where he finds a form of clay on Clifford's shoes unique to New Jersey. The mystery man of night flies to Jersey and spots kidnappers on the way. He rescues Doris Lee and Jim Taylor, then assaults the Crooks' hideout. Inside, the Crooks have captured another member of the Taylor family and are using rockets to send them quickly across the country. Starman stops the scheme and unmasks the leader of crooks, the Hooded Hunchback. The Hunchback is really Lieutenant Governor Morgan, a distant heir to the fortune and deeply in debt to gambling with state money. It sounds like a 40s serial, and I love it. The Jack Kirby cover, stellar. The art in this, I don't know if it's getting better. I just think Jack Burnley's amazing. He's amazing from the first Starman to now. But it's got a really high-end newspaper action strip quality to it that I love. This one's got a lot going on. It's got that great mini splash page. It's like the top third of the page, and it's Starman flying, and there's a guy strapped in a rocket with a bubble top, and it says, "The Case of the Murderers in Outer Space. How can a dead man move 3,000 miles in 3 hours? A fortune hangs in the balance as Starman solves the awful secret of the moving corpse." And then the next panel is a cop discovering the body with some great caption. As the eerie sea fog drifts in on San Francisco waterfront, a patrolman makes a gruesome discovery. And he finds the body, and then we see the two goons that, or probably dumped him, putting the rocket ship that it flew, we'll find out, flew this dead body across country. And the cops are confused. Hey, this is Clifford, They seem to know about this famous clause. It must be famous. The chief of police in Jersey goes to Woodley to get help. And, of course, Woodley calls Ted. Ted is at a nearby stable, and these rich, bougie American socialites, which is the big thing in the movies. These things always feel like movie serials or 30s movies to me, 30s, 40s movies, which I love. But the people are a little bit, everybody's a wealthy aristocrat, and they're the cool ones. So he's at Steeplechase, but he fakes a bad fall, and one of the guys Ted's hanging out with is Colonel Matt Taylor, the next heir for the heady Taylor fortune. He looks a little like Carter Sanders, and I bet it sounds like Foghorn Leghorn. But Ted has to he falls off the horse, and they help him. He's feigning weak because Woodley sent for him, and he meets us there, and he talks about the weird death. Clifford Taylor was alive in New York, and tells Ted that Clifford Taylor was alive in New York, and 3 hours later dead in California. Now his brother, Colonel Matt Taylor, inherits the money. Sounds like a murder. I'll fly to Frisco and examine the corpse. Back at the racetrack with the other Taylor, the new heir, the colonel, goes, my brother Cliff has been found dead in California. That means I inherit his money. I've got to leave at once. Uncle Cliff dead? Asks one of the other family members who's hanging out with Doris. And they're attacked and kidnapped. Starman gets to California. He examines the body, and he finds the clay on his shoe. Zooms back across the country. So in one page, he flies there. There's the thing, and he can catch the car that the people have kidnapped. I don't know how fast Starman can fly across country, but that's really fast. Doris is thrown out of the car, and they shoot at him, but Starman saves her. And, of course, she doesn't recognize him. Yeah, for God forbid, she recognizes her boyfriend in this open mask costume. But the bad guys are going over this bridge. The drawbridge is going up. It jumps. It's falling into the water, but Starman saves it with his cosmic rod. And he uses magnetic power to pull the bad guys out. And he spins them around, beats them up. It's a great 2 pages of action. He rescues the other Taylor. And then we find out that they have a leader, the Hooded Hunchback, which is very RKO serial, isn't it? But he's got this big device, and he's shooting rockets across trying to do it. Starman gets to where the headquarters is. They discover it. And they're about to shoot the colonel into space, and Starman is knocked unconscious by a chair. But then they put Starman in a rocket. So him and the colonel are flying through space while the other Taylor is being threatened by the Hooded Hunchback. Starman gets out of his rocket, saves the colonel, and lands. And races back before the last family member is shot across. Before Jim Taylor is fired into space, and the Hooded Hunchback is found to be the lieutenant governor of New Jersey because he's crooked, and Starman saves the day. Ta-da! It was a lot of fun. That was a fun one. I really liked that one a lot. Sometimes Golden Age comics are really overly simplistic, but this was, he got across country in 10 seconds, and, how can 13 pages be padded? But it was a nice little mini adventure. So I'm enjoying it. I'm glad we're back reading Ted's adventures. Really am. It's a lot of fun. Next up is Starman Volume 2, number 24, it's the cover on the title is Demon Quest Part 1 of 3. But on the splash page, it's Sand and Stars, an epilogue, and then also Hell and Back, a prologue. So let me give you the pertinent data from 2 spaces, Mac's Amazing World, because that's my preference for some of it, and some of the other stuff I'm going to get from the Fandom Wiki. So this is, as I said, Volume 2, number 24. It's cover dated November 1996. Went on sale September 4th, 1996. Cover price $2.25. Editor, the amazing, immortal, one of the greats of all time, Archie Goodwin. Title again, Sands of Stars, an epilogue and Hell and Back, a prologue. It's a 22-page story. Features Starman, of course. Writer, James Robinson, woohoo. Penciler, Tony Harris, woohoo. Penciler, Chris Sprouse, woohoo. Inker, Wayne P. Von Grawbadger. I might have to J. Mortimer Winslow, that sucker. Wade P. Von... No, I'll leave it alone. Ray Schneider, inker. Letterer, Bill Oakley. Colorist, Gregory A. Wright. This has been reprinted in Starman, A Wicked Inclination, trade back, 1998. Starman Omnibus hardcover, 2009. Starman Omnibus Volume 2, trade paperback, 2012. And Starman Compendium Volume 1, which is where I read it along with the Yap. There isn't a synopsis in Mike's Amazing World, but there is a short one in Fandom Wiki, which I like. To prove he is not like Nash, Jack Knight does something positive. He visits a senile mist in prison and returns a war medal to him. Later, he and the O'Dare family set a trap in order to find the kidnapped Matt O'Dare in the Shade, and also try and capture the demonic villain Merritt. So guest stars in this book are Charity, the fortune teller, the O'Dares, Barry O'Dare, Clarence O'Dare, Hope O'Dare, Mace O'Dare, Ted Knight on a phone call only. Jack battles the Mad Hatter, Jervis Tetch in one little mini adventure during the action of them trying to find where Merrick is. The Mist is seen in a lovely scene at the top of the comic, and then you have flashback appearances of Ben Luddy, Etrigan the Demon, Hamilton Drew, who we'll learn a little bit about him in this, and then we'll learn more about him at the end of the series. The Shade, Johnny Peril, Hop Hannigan, Matt O'Dare, Mr. Terrific mentioned only, Nash mentioned only, Kyle mentioned only, Sandman and Wizard also mentioned. Location is Opal City. It's a great comic. So let's kind of go through this. So Tony Harris does pages 1 through 9, 11, 13, 16 through 17, 19, 21 through 22, where Chris Sprouse does pages 10, 12, 14, and 15, 18, and 20, with inks Mr. Von Graubadger on 1 through 4 and 9 through 22, and Ray Schneider on 5 and 8. So it's kind of a mix, which is fine. Because you really can't tell the difference. The guys did a great job. But it starts with this, not a splash page. It starts with 9 panels. Jack is walking, he's talking to, is an orderly at the mental institution or prison where the Mist is. And they have a great conversation about how of course he's going to help Jack, the orderly, because he's Ted's son and Ted is so important. Jack goes, thanks for allowing this. Your father phoned ahead. His word has a lot of clout in the city, and I was more than happy to oblige him. My father has clout? Oh, yeah, of course he has. My father? Mr. Knight, your father is the most famous citizen of Opal. His word has more pull than the mayor's. Jack goes, no. Mayors win and lose, elections they come and go. Ted Knight, Starman, has been with us decades. He's done more for this city, too, than any bureaucrat. I never thought of my father that way. Anyway, here we are. We have a guard outside if there are any problems, though I don't expect any. Right, says Jack. He appeared to have some of his faculties this morning. You're lucky. They'll leave him as suddenly, and then no one can communicate with him. Will he recognize me? No. Good. Knock on the door when you're done. I will, thanks. Hello, Father. It's me, your son. So he comes in, he walks into the Mist's room, and he starts lying. He starts pretending to be Kyle, which I don't blame him, and it works like a charm. This is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful moment. So he has a conversation with the Mist. And the way that Tony Harris does it is we see him in the room with the aged Mist, but when the Mist turns to look at Jack, we see Nash. Or Kyle, not Kyle. But when we see, so it jumps in and out of that, and they have this great conversation, and I'm tempted to read the whole thing, but it's 5 pages, and I don't think you want to hear me do that. But basically, he talks to him like, he tells him that he's killed Ted. He's gotten his revenge now, and he's not the Mist, and the older Kyle, the older Mist, the original Mist, is kind of upset because he doesn't think much of Nash. But Jack defends her as Kyle, saying, no, she's done what you wanted. And he's not wrong. I mean, she's done horrible things, but she's done what he would have wanted. And he's given this father, he's given the Mist something precious. I see it. It's like that. He's gotten the medal. And he hears the story about of the battle how it had won it, how he had run across the trench after seeing so many people die and kill all these Germans and rally the troops because he was Canadian in the British Army in the war. And then he starts to lose it, and he calms him down. So Jack's seen all this. He's given him, and he says he's given him the medal. He's like, I've done this for you. And he kisses him on the head, goodbye, and says, goodbye, Dad, and leaves. And then he leaves, and he runs into the orderly again, and he says to the orderly, "So I hope that shows her." "Who, Mr. Knight?" "The Mist, the new Mist, the old man's daughter. I hope that proves that me and her are not the same." "I'm sure it will." And that's him talking to his dad on the phone. He's on the payphone. Payphone's outside the hospital. And then Jack comes out of the hospital, and then comes the O'Dare sister. And she explains something's gone up. Both the Shade and Matt have been pulled into a poster. And then we get Chris Spouse giving us journal and reading. Jack starts reading the Shade's journal, and in this we get text, which is the journal entries about how he first heard of Merritt, and more about Oscar Wilde. And it's wonderfully drawn by Chris Spouse, and I love Chris Spouse. Everybody should love Chris Spouse. But then we cut back to the oldest O'Dare, and he's now the superhero liaison officer working for the new Commissioner Wu, who's going to start at the end of the week. And they're talking about how they need to find Merritt. And then we cut again. We get another page where we learn the story of how Merritt summoned the demon that it lives in the poster. And then we see Jack and the O'Dares going and putting the lean on some bad guys. We're going to put a lean on them, lean into them to get information. And then we cut that more about Merritt. Merritt he spied for the Dutch during the Boer War, for the Turks in the Great War. He found gold in the Klondike, lost it all on Wall Street. All these things. He has a suburban street in Australia named after him. That he is one of these great 20th century adventurers, but he's immortal. And it's like a pulp novel. I frickin' love it. And again, more beautiful Chris Sprouse art. We cut to another scene, and we got Jack battling the Mad Hatter. It has nothing to do with the crime. It just, Jack fights supervillains in his hometown of Opal, and one of them happens to be the Mad Hatter. I forgot about that. I loved it. It was amazing. And then we get to the point to where they're outside the poster, and the poster says Two Fools. It's got a demon, and you can see Matt and the Shade being threatened by it. And it's great. It's so Jack's like, "So is this the poster?" And the oldest O'Dare goes, "Yeah, Roger Dean has nothing to worry about on him." And I really don't know who Roger Dean is. So I looked him up. He is a famous artist, English artist and designer, and he did posters and album covers. And I looked some up, and the ones I knew regularly, he did a couple of Yes albums covers, and a lot of albums I've seen, a lot of 70s albums. Very cool, very cool. So I get the reference now. I had to do that. I had to go see it. Because I think James Robinson's a little older than I am, probably a little smarter than I am, and knew these things. Clarence and the oldest O'Dare brother and Jack are talking. Clarence goes, "I'm older than I look. Not much, to be true, but a bit. The suit and the stiff back come with being the oldest son." To which Jack replies, "You know, you remind me of my brother, just a little, in the way you stand and the pauses between words." And then they just kind of look at each other. "You know what I'm thinking? We're hunting for Merritt, but we need to get Merritt hunting for us. We bait our hook with the poster and hang out there, and Merritt will come." And then we get another flashback, and there we are introduced to Hamilton Drew and his assistant Ben Luddy. And I'm going to read you part of this because Drew will come back in later issues, and this is from Shade's journal. In 1926, Merritt and his deeds came to the attention of an adventurer, an Englishman, Hamilton Drew. Like the heroes of Doyle and Romer, he was a true blue gentleman adventurer, bright and intelligent, but with a laden spirit, the way England can beat down their finest before they've flown. So it was with this fellow. Drew and his assistant Ben Luddy pursued Merritt through many exploits in the late 1920s. They once encountered Merritt's demon and other horrors in the bandit dens of Mongolia. Another time, Luddy was snared by Merritt, forcing Drew to lead a Cossack charge across the snowy Siberian waste to save his friend. And, of course, there was the incident in Crete. But let it not be thought that Merritt is a giant criminal mind. No empire of infamy is his. With a bizarre courtier of agents and killers at his beck and call, Merritt is a villain, aye, but his main talent is his elusiveness. He can escape always. He was one step ahead of Drew every time. He's been one step ahead of everyone who's ever tried to catch or kill him. Again, we cut back to the present. We're in Clarence's office, and they're planning. And then there's a phone call from Jack. It's Charity. And she's had a vision, a prophecy. She's seen flashes of Merritt. He's coming for Jack, and he's coming for her. And she sees her death. So they decide to send Mason. At another flashback, and this time we find Johnny Peril had fought the demon. The demon, Etrigan, had fought him. But Merritt kept escaping, and now he's in open. Now we get to the final 2 pages. And I want to go through this. Is basically there's a nice narration, and it's basically Mason is headed to where Charity Shop is. This is a magical time in Opal, when Jack polishes the armor of his spirit for a joust within the unknown that he knows will surely come. When a master of dark and a sheriff twice born face fiery pits or icy vaults of hell, or whatever fate indeed may be theirs. But in other ways, too, it's a magical time in the city. Something, the texture of the air, the singing of the trees, and the whispers of ancient granite. The birds have a light. The river brushes its hair. The city sighs like a mother content to see her sons and daughters fare so well. All of this and more. It's there if you know how to look. Mason O'Dare hasn't spoken a word all day. Others, his brethren, Jack, are so quick to talk. There's been a little need for him to utter even a syllable. He worries for his missing brother. His heart is dark, and his manner cold. And then we hear Charity's voice come in. "Ah, come in. I've been waiting for you. I've packed a bag." And then the narration continues. Then his eyes meet another's, and he hears his own voice before he realizes it. "Hello, I'm Mason. I'm Charity." And the magic is upon him. So the prophecy that Charity said early on has come to happen. She's met her true love, Mason. And I love that moment. I love that that's the end of the chapter. I love that we're going to go into part 2 in issue 25. And this amazing story of the poster and Merritt and the Shade and Matt O'Dare and all of it is, your guys are going to be, if you're reading it for the first time with me, who's ever listened to this, I hope you're enjoying it. If you're reading it again, I hope you're enjoying it. But I'm loving the crap out of it. And it's just been amazing. I think this story, this is a nice introduction because it gets all the players as they move them around and get everything ready. I'm glad that the first of the 3 chapters is not in the poster. We've seen them be taken into it. Previous issue, we've just seen another day in the life of Opal. Opal's the character. It's like they have to, Opal and its denizens are a character in it. And the O'Dares are really getting fleshed out in this. And because I haven't read this in maybe 10 years, it's very fresh for me, and I'm enjoying that part of it. But I really kind of like how the story's moving. The art is tremendous. Having Chris Sprouse do all the stuff from the past is absolutely genius. If you're not, Chris Sprouse is one of the great comic artists of this era. If you haven't got, I've got his Tom Strong compendium, which at some point I'm going to devour. Maybe I'll have another staycation and devour it. But it's wonderful. And this story's just moving along. And this was a good week. It's been crazy. If you'll notice, I didn't post anything this weekend, even though I recorded a Daring Defenders with Billy, which will go up this weekend coming up. Work's just a little crazy. And I wanted to give this time. And I really wanted to read this issue 3 or 4 times. I got a chance to read it 3 times. I read it in the compendium. I read it on the app very slowly, panel by panel, as I do, and I posted some of those panels. And then I read it again today on the bus on the way home. on the app. And I'm tempted to go ahead and read ahead. I may read ahead. I may start, but I mean, I've got to do Will next week, but I may read ahead just to kind of get 3 or 4 good reads in on the next 2 issues. And we're going to have another Adventure Comics next week, and then Ted's Adventures in an All-Star comic. So super excited about that. All right, folks, as always, thanks for listening. Just patient with when stuff comes in. Opal City will probably be a higher priority at times, but I'm going to be I've got some plans in the works to cover some more Legion, other than my Legion adventure, which I'll probably drop next week, 1 or 2 maybe, who knows. And to do another team book in a way. It's a team up in a way, but it's not your standard superhero comic. So that's in the works too. But until then, folks, be safe, be smart. Please be kind to each other and read some comics. Read Starman. Read Starman. Read Starman.